Welcome to the Dental Implant Practices podcast, where each episode will explore how to integrate dental implants into your practice and into bone, with your host, Dr. Philip Gordon.
Welcome to the Dental Implant Practices podcast. My name is Philip Gordon, and we got a surprise for you today.
Welcome to the Implant Pathway podcast. I'm your co-host, Dr. Stephen Vorholt.
Welcome to Dentists, Implants, and Worms, helping you navigate the world of dentistry one vodka soda at a time. Oh, we've got a good one today.
Who are you guys?
Not even sure anymore.
He really needs no introduction.
We're podcasting live from Dental Prison Podcast Cell 3.
Yep.
With your warden, Justin D. Moody.
Oh my God.
What does the D stand for?
David. Yes. Oh, and
we've also got a great selection of dentists here. We've got Chris Barrett. Say hello.
Howdy, everybody.
We've got the Wade Pilling.
What's up?
We have James Sanderson from Alabama.
Roll Tide. You got to say Roll Tide sometime.
Roll Tide. Oh.
That will get edited out. That'll be edited out, so we don't have to worry about the Roll Tide.
We just start over.
Hey guys,
the Indian Prince himself. If you could say hello on the grab a mic there, buddy.
Hey guys.
And we've got Dr. Chris Epperson.
I'm in the corner. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, nice.
Somebody untie him.
This is kind of a spur of the moment thing. We are teaching a sinus augmentation course at Implant Pathway, which is basically a lot of lateral window sinuses going on.
Tons of bone.
And I thought, let's just get the gang together and talk dentistry for a minute. So we're on the heels of the reopening COVID. And what's that look like for you, Howard? I know you talk to a lot of people. You've got an office and you get around in dentistry a little. What's going on in your world?
The world's a pretty big place. I mean, 7.8 billion people. I think it's obvious that what the governments are telling you to do is not correlating to what the people are doing. It seems like all the talks, Denmark did this, Sweden did this, which U.S. state did this, but that's really not what the data is showing. The data is showing that you're an individual, you got a smartphone just like everyone else. And I think that the young people, I mean, this is an old man disease. I mean, think about when coronavirus hit America last time. It came in, 2012 and killed 38 million souls, but they were all pigs, so no one cared. But they were all baby pigs. This is when the babies are fine. It's just old people. So, every time I talk to someone, they say, I ran out of money. I had to go back to work. 1/3 of the deaths have been in nursing homes. 1/3 have been in meat packing plants. And I think at least half of America does not fear this thing. I mean, they don't fear it. Now, if you're old like me, I mean, I'm 57, so I'm already suffering from, HIV, diabetes, herpes, chlamydia. Old people are scared. I have to tell you, a lot of old, if you're 60 and over, I think that's what's affecting the economy. So the question I have for you guys is, what % of the implant market is, because a lot of people don't know really who is the implant patient. Is it just a bunch of grandmas and grandmas that are afraid to go out and catch something? I mean, what %, if I just ask you, what % of the implant market in America is senior citizen? Because that's the scared market.
It is. No, for sure. And, where I practice in Kansas, we're back open for elective dentistry, probably first wave. So that was May 4th. Yeah, May 4th. And that was, I think, about as early as it gets. And we kind of jumped back into things, but we're, in the middle of the country where we were not as affected as the coasts. But you're right. The implant market inherently had been elderly, but I think there's a huge market of younger adults, whether it be trauma or neglect or drugs, that need a lot of teeth replaced as well. So I think it's not just an old man's, treatment anymore, right? It's not just for the old people. Implants are here to stay. They are the tooth replacement option. So if you have a service that people want and need, I think there's business to be had. Now, with what we're saying, yes, we do need to be cautious, but by and large, that market's not afraid. But I do think you are seeing the seniors still be reserved.
I don't think that's again, I think the reserve part of it is also regional oriented too.
Demographically oriented.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're in New York and New Jersey, like you're definitely scared. You think about, I got the 2 dental offices in Western Nebraska. My dad lives in a county that to date hasn't had a case, and his county is surrounded by counties that haven't had a case. So when we reopened on the 7th back in Nebraska, like it was just business as usual. Like there was no hesitation from young or old, there was no, you think about it, there was also no hesitation from the hygienists back there either. Like they didn't have an issue. And Nebraska was also a state that the unemployment isn't that great. So they weren't making more money on unemployment than they were working, which was an unintended consequence of what they did. Like they tried to do something nice, but so there they went back to work. And I don't think there's a fear factor, as maybe a few. Like my 96-year-old grandmother hasn't seen a visitor for 11 weeks. Like that's real. And she's definitely at risk. And for me to travel back to go see her, like I'm always on airplanes still. Like I flew throughout the entire, lockdown and such. So I probably don't need to go cack my 96-year-old grandmother, because who knows? Like I haven't done the antibody test, but like if someone was probably maybe exposed to it,
I knew I was going to test positive at thing. And I tested negative. I went and got tested. I thought I have to test positive. And I didn't.
You didn't? What did you do over there? Did you lock down? Did you stay at home?
Well, I mean,
were you going into what dental town, dude? Did you lay everybody off, furlough them? Like what happened over there?
I got 2 businesses. So the dental office is B2C, right? So we had to shut down. The dental media company is B2B. So I thought it was really interesting because we always had a long leash, because going back to the Federal Reserve has the most PhD economists on staff. I think they have like 3,500, and they have the best business research on anything, but they don't know how to market it, or, they should have in a magazine or something. But anyway, they always showed that the people who stay the longest employees have the longest leash. And me and our president, Lori Zlowski, we were big believers in that. She was more than I was. I have to admit that. And so we always had a really long leash. Like the Federal Reserve would say, okay, I have to work for you 8 to 5, but if I could have came in at 8:30, I could have dropped off my kid at school. So I hold that against you every day, and I hate you for it. Eventually they quit. So I think the reason we've had so many employees stay with us 20 years is we have a very long leash. So just get your work done. So when this thing broke out, God, everybody at Dental Town could work from home. And now we're having so we were all prepared for that. And now a lot of them, and it's kind of funny, the different personalities that are social that want to come back. And then guys like me that are introvert, we're always fine. But yeah,
I can see that.
Let's hear from James about in Alabama and working with BioHorizons, a manufacturing / educational company that caters to dentists while dentists were shut down. What was the focus at BioHorizons?
I was on more webinars than you can stick a stick at. And we created a lot more content. We've got a lot of free CE that we've made available. And it's been a great learning time for our team. And then also one thing that I've learned about is that I ignored all my practice life was the aerosols. And we've got a bigger issue in aerosols than I ever thought.
Yeah, but even that's conflicting because there's some solid research that, for me, it's my second rodeo. I mean, we had HIV and, in dental school, and 81 that broke in LA, and I graduated in 87. And so this stuff about countertops and all that stuff, I remember people all freaking out. Well, that guy went to Denny's and drank out of a glass, and they didn't autoclave the glass. That needs, but it's a respiratory droplet. And I just saw that study out of Toronto, and, every single person that died, like say a third of them in a nursing home, they could connect it to a sick person walking around, checking their beds, all that kind of stuff. No one's documented that I touched a counter and then rubbed my eye and then got sick. I mean, you need to be, and then the same thing with HIV. Remember back in HIV, weird things like Rock Hudson would die of AIDS, but his lover didn't. but it was too taboo to say, well, they had an oral relationship. And that, so loading dose was everything, catching a singular virus, probably isn't how it works. You need a loading dose, and it looks like the loading dose is a big droplet of a loogie, and they came within 6 feet of you, and they coughed or sneezed, or you're in a loud place like this, like when you have to lean in to hear someone in a bar. But I think it's human to human, animal to animal. It's a respiratory deal. So yeah, they're going to find it on the bottom of your shoes and countertops and all that stuff. But that's not how it's going to.
Let's hear from Wade. How has the coronavirus affected the cosmetic dentist in Idaho?
Not too bad at all.
Possibly the world.
Possibly the world.
Yeah, possibly the world.
He's got a new underwear shoot coming out next month too.
That's right.
I can't wait. So no, I we did lots of emergency veneers over the shutdown. People have emotional pain. They want to look better. We gotta treat that, right?
It is real. When we go back up, our first patient was a 71-year-old lady whose front tooth broke off right when we shut down. I swear to God, if the Governor Ducey, who I love, if he would have been there, I think, she was so upset. So yeah, cosmetic emergencies are a real thing.
Yeah, people wanted to be treated. We treated them. My own interesting takeaway from the shutdown is how the profession tries to turn on each other. Hygienists against dentists, dentists against dentists. If somebody's open, they're going to turn them in. It's like we as a colleagues just really kind of pulled apart instead of pulling together to support each other. Like if someone in New York, maybe they have to shut down, but why should they care if someone in some rural area decides to stay open to treat patients, especially emergencies? I found it interesting that during the crisis, a lot of people try to turn on each other.
Is that a fracturing of the market, or is that a personality defect that different people have? Or, where does that come from? Is that because dentistry is their own businesses? Do you see that? Would you see that in other areas of medicine that are more hospital run? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't really know, but as Sanderson says here, self-esteem. Yeah. There are doctors online talking about how they're staying open. I know, Marty up in Florida, he stayed open through it all, and people raging against him, but they're in Florida. He wasn't hit where he was, where some areas are going to. Yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to insecurities.
Well, we're in Western Florida right here, buddy. Arizona is technically Western Florida. I can't tell the difference between Arizona and Florida. Their people are politics. They're equally crazy.
Yeah. I just found that interesting that people will be bothered by what other people are doing,
Yeah, Monty's never been bothered what anyone else thinks. I love that guy.
So we've got two docs here that practice implantology in Phoenix, Scottsdale, Raj and Chris. What's you guys kind of run slightly different clinics, but mostly implant related in the Phoenix Scottsdale area. What's the vibe been like out here? I know we've chatted a little bit, but as far as when you shut down, how you shut down, and how you're reopening, I know we've talked. You guys have reopened with a bang, like I have. What's the status for you guys right now, and as far as staff, patients, and moving forward?
I think the biggest thing is obviously reassuring the patients, and I think it's the vibe that you put out, and we're taking our precautions in regards to everything that we're doing, but we're also we're leading by example, and we're reassuring our patients, and really not letting fear kind of rule us in that fashion. And I think it's one thing where you can look at it as, there's two sides to every coin, right? Like there's everywhere there's opportunity, right? So it's kind of things, people still need their teeth fixed. People still need their smiles taken care of. They need their dental care to be addressed. And it's something that we make sure that they understand the importance and the value of that. We make sure that we're doing our screenings, that we're going through all the checks and balances, especially with the staff, to make sure they're protected. And, we just lead by example. We saw emergencies during the shutdown, and we dealt with a lot of facial swellings, a lot of extractions. We kept a lot of people out of the emergency room. And I think it's a great time for dentists who may not have certain skill sets to help, to come learn or to grow in a program, whether they can maybe add some additional skills to help take care of patients and kind of also diversify the practice skill set.
Yeah, Chris, maybe you can answer that. Do you think your practice, which is focused specifically on implants, is doing better out of the COVID than a practice which is more hygiene and filling based? And if so, why?
We look through our numbers, and the average age of our patient is 66 years old. And so that's right in the sweet spot of like who should be afraid of during these times. I just don't think that they necessarily bought into feeling that fear, like through some of the media, because the numbers weren't really here in Arizona like they were on the coast. So we've had patients that have said, I'm going to delay treatment voluntarily. And then we've had a number of patients that just said, hey, you know what? I'm ready to get this treatment done. And they've come in. So we did the same thing. We opened up on May 4th. And then by the time we got through all of the back patients and surgeries and then consults for the new ones, we're booked out 3 or 4 weeks already. So I think patients and people in general are just ready to get back to normal. We're still taking.
Do you think that's because you're doing things people want, as opposed, and not necessarily the things that they don't need? Of course, they need it, but I mean, if you're a strong hygiene, fillings, and crown general GP, refer everything out practice, are you struggling a lot more than somebody who says, "I'm doing full mouth rehabs. Patients want this; they're going to come get it regardless."
That's a great question.
And the other things are easier to skip and put off.
Yeah, a 6-op hygiene where you're 40% of your production or collections is hygiene related, and then you're doing bread and butter dentistry. Potentially, your volume could be down. Whereas with our practice, it's a lot of full mouth extractions or implants, or hey, you broke a front tooth, and so that kind of is back to that cosmetic emergency type thing. I would think that would be different, and I'd be curious to know what some of the larger, the Clear Choices of the world and maybe some of those outfits as far as treating kind of full arch implant dentistry, how they're coming back as far as this goes too.
And maybe Howard, you can say something on that. What's the general hygiene bread and butter refer out most practice? I mean, I think that practice model is in trouble anyway moving forward regardless. But now that COVID's hit and most of that stuff isn't a true emergency, it doesn't need to be dealt with. But how much of those offices are still running it, are still in dire need right now and maybe in the next month or two still?
I think the biggest impact to COVID is you got people out of their routine. I mean, remember when that big hurricane hit New Orleans? What was Katrina? United States runs about a 75% recidivism rate. So whatever we let you out of jail of, you're going to be back in. And their home was destroyed. And these people all had to go to other places. And it took a while for the recidivism rate studiers to say, oh my God, these people couldn't go back to their hood. They had to go live with grandma in Houston, and they're not a criminal anymore. And now that all these dentists have been having a retreat for a month, they're realizing, they're going to address a lot of big issues. And the biggest issue is never go into a business that's capital intensive, where someone else sets your fees. Those are the first 2 rules of business. And what do we decide to do? To go into dentistry. My land building an office at today's dental, that was $1 million. And then Delta Dental sets my fees. And I think, and so look at these hygienists that don't want to come back. I mean, these hygienists want $40 an hour for me to do a $60 cleaning when the American Dental Association says average overhead's 2/3. I think that the biggest impact of COVID is that it's no longer a game of volume. I can't go numb you up, go see the crown, go do a hygiene check. I can't run all around. So if we're going to go slow, the question is, if I have all these patients and say a quarter of them don't want to come back, and say you have all these employees and say a quarter of them don't want to come back, it's time to start looking at your margin. It's time to start pruning all these trees. I mean, you got out of school, you planted 25,000 plants around your house, and now it's 10 years later, and you're like, that tree didn't turn out too right. And it's called selective pruning in agriculture. And I think the smartest people are going to say, I could probably come back and see half the patients and make twice the net income. So why am I going to go in there? I mean, the thing I actually don't enjoy it all the most in dentistry is like when you walk in there and it's a quadrant of MOD composites. And you got 4 MOD on number 2, 3, 4, 5. And you know Delta's going to pay you like one dime more than your overhead to do this. There's no shortcuts. It's just, and you got to be sitting there and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Especially on some lady that came in here with $1,000 iPhone that drives a $30,000 Nissan. So I think a lot of people are going to wisen up to the fact that over this deal, I saw people that get a toothache. And they would go down and see him, and they do the root canal, below crown, CEREC thing, the whole thing for $2,500. And then they're calling me that night and say, "Damn, I was by myself with one $20 an hour assistant for 3 hours, and I made $2,500." And the business model is a game of volume. It's a game of low margin, and that's why the economy is going to be rocked. Because when you look at the S&P 500, where the average profit margin is 5%. Well, if the economy shrank 10%,
not good.
That means a lot of people are going to get shaken out. So
we'll just keep printing money, Howard. Don't worry.
Right, and that is
got to be good for the economy.
And that is another.
How many more trillions do you need?
That is a dangerous thing, because China is the other superpower, and they're about the same size as our economy, and the United States can do that because they're the reserve currency. And this is the biggest dangerous impact ever. We're the reserve currency. 80% of all trade around the world international is done in US dollars. And when everybody's using it as a reserve currency, you can counterfeit shit and sell it all day long. Well, the Chinese aren't ever going to get around that, because we don't trust them, because they're communists. They're the mob. So what are they doing? They're doing the technology's out now where I can digitally store my money on a digital currency. And I'm not talking Bitcoin or some wacko thing, and transfer to you. And China is pushing that forward, because all those US dollar transactions at the end of the day, they're all going to go through Wall Street, which is, in fact, Paul Volcker, who was the Fed chairman when I was in dental school, almost all the gold is still in the New York Fed. But I think if the technology, which is right here, if fintech, financial technology, makes it so I can get my paycheck downloaded on my phone and buy something from you, and there's a currency, almost like a digital gold currency,
like a hash gram,
then the United States isn't going to get away with their counterfeiting, and their I think hopefully I won't live long enough to see that. But if we lost our reserve currency status, holy shit, the chips would fall. But I think we're in I think 2020 was dead on arrival, and I think we lost the whole decade. I mean, I think it's going to be all the talk about the vaccine. Everybody that talks about the vaccine, you just know they're either really, really young or they're not from science, because again, the advantage of being old is that when I was in dental school and I graduated in 87, for 4 years, all I was told is, well, the vaccine for dental decay, it's around the corner. The vaccine for P. gingivalis. In fact, it'll probably be, your whole job will be vaccinated before you get out. And every time I got a flu vaccine, they'd always say, well, this isn't for the common cold. And I go, I know. And they go, well, why don't you make one for rhinovirus? That's 90% common cold, or the coronavirus, which is 10% common cold. And they'd always say, oh yeah, they're doing that, and it'll be ready next year. Dude, I'm 57 years old. They don't have anything. And then if you look at the vaccines they do have, the CDC on influenza, the effectiveness long term, when they look back for years, is between 17 and 71%. So and I tell a story. When I was in college, one of the happiest days of my life, I woke up and I read that Upjohn Pharmaceuticals in Kalamazoo, Michigan, had just cured male pattern baldness with Rogaine. Now I want you guys to look at my head real closely. Raj, you see that Rogaine, the power of Rogaine?
You're not the only one senior here with a shiny dome here.
You did just about bleed to death. You did cut yourself.
I know, I cut myself in the shower. But so the bottom line is, young kids think they're gonna cure male pattern baldness and all this shit around there. They're not gonna do anything for this. And if they do rush a vaccine, I guarantee it's gonna be one of the crappiest vaccines with the most side effects they've ever rolled out ever. So I think this was a huge shock. This was as big as waking up to Pearl Harbor getting bombed by the Japanese.
Now,
I thought the Germans did that.
yeah, no, that
was Animal House. That's right.
Now, a lot of people, myself included, have really kind of maybe reevaluated various things going through this. So I'll speak for myself and not others. But I think I used the time to kind of evaluate why I'm doing what I'm doing. I was kind of forced to stop being busy and look at, like you said, how can I trim the fat? Literally off my body. I just lost over 20 pounds just deciding to eat healthier and get back into working out. But also trim the fat in.
That picture.
Yeah, we'll post that picture later.
He looks great.
But also in the fact of my business and also in the fact of my whatever life. How can I trim the things that maybe I don't need? And how can I get back to a better situation that maybe I should have been on anyhow? But like you talked about, the treadmill, the speed, the overhead, the whatever builds up. How do you see other people reevaluating things? Because it wasn't a fear that, oh my gosh, I'm going to get coronavirus and die. Life's short. Let's get going. It was more of a, why am I doing certain things that I'm doing when I was forced to really sit down and look at it differently?
Well, you're not afraid of death because you're married and have children.
Yeah. There's exactly.
Yeah.
I'm on the threshold of hell. I can't get it all.
You want to look for signs of life. They're all single. They want to live, but yeah, I mean, when I was little, I used to get mad at my mom because, she'd make us always do these Catholic retreats, and
They were good for you.
They were so good for you because they just unplugged you. You want to get up on Saturday and ride your bicycle but
just that's hard to do nowadays is unplug.
And that's what I loved. And actually, my mom hates when I say this because my two older sisters are nuns. But what I enjoyed, I had to go to daily mass every day since birth until I left to go to Catholic college at Creighton. And people would say, oh, man, you have to do that every day. And I loved it because they said the masses in Latin from birth to 10. So you didn't know a damn word they said, but it gave you time just to focus on your day. And then when they started doing it in English, I actually didn't like it because they'd say something, I'd break my train of thought, like, wait, what did he say? And because you're planning your day. So you got used to this hour inner looking.
I'm going to hell for what? Hold on. What?
And I think you just gave all the dentists a month to go to Catholic retreat. And they're all looking at us as, it looks like I just provide a bunch of jobs for a bunch of ungrateful employees and work my ass
break my neck for people that don't give a shit.
For this little margin. Mm-hmm. And I used to get in trouble with other people with my view on this, but I think it's totally wrong. When you were saying what the dentists were doing in Idaho, first of all, when you said he's from Idaho, I said, no, Idaho. You not Tahoe, Idaho. And
classic.
Okay, classic Joe. But that what you were saying about Idaho, that's just people stuff. It's just people stuff. And teams are tough because some people are toxic and others aren't. You just got to get a team that's not toxic. But the thing is, people are strange animals. You know what I mean? They're just strange. And I would never get stressed out. I would never care for your teeth more than you do. So like I'm doing a filling, I'm running late and the contact's just not right, but you don't give a shit. You don't brush, you don't floss. You haven't been in for a year and a half. I would do a filling on Philip very differently than I would do on, my drunken Irish trailer buddy, So I think.
And I don't know if that's wrong.
Well, I don't care if it's wrong. See, and there you go. Other people have that care factor. I don't give a shit. But the bottom line is you're doing all this for ungrateful employees, ungrateful patients. You're stressed out of your mind, and you could probably net more money. I mean, my buddy Omar Reed just died here, and I feel so bad about that because that was I knew all people were flying in from all over the world to go to his funeral, and that was just when Corona was breaking. And at the last minute, I just couldn't do it. I thought this might be a really bad idea. But, Gort, he used to always say, if you doubled your prices, ran off half your patients, you double your net income. And I mean, you're doing all this for ungrateful insurance companies, ungrateful everybody. And maybe it's time that dentists just get selfish and say, you know what? I am all that in a bag of chips. And you come in, I'll do the exam, the x-rays when I'm probing you, I'll scale, I'll do this. You got 3 fillings, we'll do them. And I'm just going to see a new patient for an hour and a half and it's cash only. And if you only saw that one guy, you'd probably make more margin than a whole day of these PPOs.
Yeah, I had more colleagues and friends in this shutdown that were realizing I don't need a hygiene department. I don't need 4 front office staff. I need 2 patients in pain who want the treatment. They're grateful for the treatment, and it's a lot of surgery. And like something like implants, it's surgery, low overhead generally, especially pulling teeth. And they're like, man, I'm making a killing, making more money, net money this month. Not having to cover all the staff costs and all the overhead and all the headaches. And I think a lot of people are starting to really, really rethink their models, like Phil was saying.
And the hygienist, I mean, I think what we should do for the hygienist is just immediately give them independent practitioner. I mean, just my God, knock yourself out. Go set up your own place. Because you know what would be so great about that is when I go into a dental office, it's like you've been working here 20 years, you come out, same hygienist, clean exam, x-rays, and I'll say, did you net $5.18 after taxes, or did you lose $12? They don't know their math. I know my homies, they don't know their math. Well, if the hygienist was on her own, do you think she'd go be renting a nice deal in a nice mall and doing all that and insurance and get all this Dentrix to file the claim with Blue Cross and Blue Shield? Are you out of here? She would learn immediately that needs to be, so underpriced. Let them go.
Why have we been fighting that? It's starting to think like we fought it hard. Like that's so integral to our practice. That's 40% of our collections. That's where we get all our treatment from. You're right. We should just let it go nationally. Go nuts.
And now they're doing it with dental therapists. I cannot believe it. Wherever they've licensed dental therapy. Okay, so independent practitioner, go to Colorado. I know like 7 of them. And they're in small towns of 1,000. It's in their, they have one operatory where their dining room table used to be. And when they see something funky, they write a referral. They say, hey, Philip, will you look at this tooth? And then that doctor's like, oh, man, this is great. I mean, you just walk in here with a referral from a hygienist and you need a crown or a root canal. And same thing with dental therapists. All the dental therapists that got out, they all went and worked at dental offices. And when I go in that dental office, the guy's like, oh, my God, I haven't had to do a filling since I hired this person. I mean, I don't want to do cleanings all day. I don't want to do fillings all day. I'd rather do bigger procedures. But why dentists fight their it's just fear. I mean, they're just humans. They're just
and this room is full of dentists who realized that a while ago that they wanted to focus on surgery and not the minutia, not the low 10% profit margin stuff. So you're kind of preaching to the choir a little bit. I mean, I left Ohio the end of last year with the goal of never doing a composite again. At least that's not plugging up an implant access hole. So so far I've loved it.
Well, the specialties of oral surgery have made the most money. I mean, when they come to Arizona out of oral surgery school, they get hired instantly with a $300,000 a year base pay. And the people hiring them pay them that versus like 45% of production. And I know oral surgeons 3 years out of school making $750 a year. I mean, all the money in dentistry and it has always been blood. Same thing in hospitals. The surgeons make all the money and everything else doesn't.
You buy the extraction forceps once and you pull thousands of teeth with it. That's pretty good overhead control. And it's done. Raj and I were talking about this earlier. It's done.
Raj, I liked his previous name. What was it? The
Indian Prince.
The Indian Prince.
That's Ala Gordon right there.
In my practice, I had a fee-for-service practice my whole life. And I still believe that there's a certain segment of the population that wants service. But it's been interesting talking to young guys, and they're like, I'm like, well, crap, if I went back to work, I'd be fee for service.
Well, I think the reason they did the volume is because, if you study economics, and I love economics and dentistry equally, the low cost leader, they always win the game. I mean, Southwest Airlines is 27% winner, IKEA, Costco, Price Club, Walmart. I mean, whoever keeps one eye on the customer and one eye on cost and uses their brain to drive down cost wins the game. And we're Americans. That's all we know. That's all we did. But the deal that's different is we just had a 30-day Catholic retreat with Father Michael Aloysia. And my gosh, it's no longer a game of volume.
And I think the thing too is, one, the docs that really know their numbers, they did well. I mean, they knew that they had to keep cash on the sideline to weather the storm, not being over leveraged, and being aligned for, what the economy may come, especially we've been running a bull run for quite a while. We knew that maybe something could be coming in terms of the economically also down the road. So being financially prepared, being not over leveraged, having lean and mean teams, having a nice diverse skill set. And then also, I think not trying to be everything to everyone. I mean, you talk about Southwest, Costco, Walmart, all these guys, they kind of know who their ideal client is, who their Bob is, who their customer is, and they cater to that individual. I think there are a lot of times where when you really know the pain in the market and where you fit in terms of delivering the pain medicine, you can do very well.
Career-wise, Howard, if you're looking at somebody who's on the back nine, what's that look like for those guys now? Because I imagine maybe half of them are like, well, shit, I don't even want to come back now. I mean, that would be my sentiment if I was there. I'd be like, well, shit, it's just because every couple of years it's something, right? Pacific Dental just moved into my town, and the hygiene department's cost me too much, and the damn help's just annoying me. And now, I was forced to shut down for a month, and it's just like, why am I in the game anymore if I'm 60 and I'm a dentist? Why would I even come back after this? And then if they do or don't, who's gonna come out ahead, right? Is this is this a good time to start buying multiple practices? Is this a time to have one practice and one operatory and do a one-man band? I mean, what's the approach? Because I could see either way, maybe being profitable, but at the end of the day, you gotta, like Raj said, pick your niche and own it. But what are the guys, your age doing? What are they thinking right now?
My age? I thought you were talking about Raj.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well,
God.
I mean, as far as the guys that are like, hey,
well, it's an honor to be sitting here representing the back nine folks.
Well, I mean, but I know my father. My father is retiring now, and not because of COVID. It was his plan. But I know, James, you just retired, and Howard, I know you've got your license. I don't know how much dentistry you practice, but if you're an opportunity to say, I could retire now, 55 and plus, that 55 to 65-year-old dentist who maybe is in a slim margin, who actually put money away and didn't buy boats and have 6 wives and all that, and said, look, I kind of maybe could retire. What are they thinking?
Well, I mean, a lot of questions are. So, let's go back to Warren Buffett's in the news, or some guy who's that guy in the news that has sold his position. And there's a lot of people now that a year before the corona, everybody's like, why is Warren not buying anything? And he was sitting on like 145 billion. Then the market crashed, and he still wasn't. And then during the crash, he was selling, he was unloading. And now there's who was that big guy that lost like $1 billion in Amway, saying he's dumped his Berkshire Hathaway stock. And it's like, okay, we already knew you were an idiot. Thanks for confirming it again. Nice to have 2 good examples, but Warren's still not buying, because if you look at the math, it's really crazy. So when this market tanked and this whole thing happened, the United States government printed more money than ever. And so did Europe. I mean, we had unprecedented counterfeiting beyond levels. And then all these benefits of unemployment, all these people staying at work. So you look at all that, and then you look at the fact that the coronavirus just, 85% of humans live in the northern equator. I don't know why. I wasn't there a million years ago, and of majority of northern equator, most of them live between 20 and 40 parallels. So that's really the only band of Earth that we're really talking about 85% of the time. Is this little band. And we've always known the viruses were seasonal, up and down, up and down. So you got that going. So you're good. So you're going to run out of, so you have this massive, unprecedented counterfeiting going on. You have interest rates of 0. So now you can't pull a string. You'd be pushing on a string, and all that stimulus money and all that unemployment money and all that stuff's going to come out about the same time of the fall when Corona does its best. And I think that that's why Warren still hasn't bought anything, because I think...
you think we're going to go lower?
Well, of course. We just finished one round.
Deleverage.
In fact, the first wave of if the second wave of the Spanish influenza didn't come around, we wouldn't even all be talking about it all the time. I mean, so I think that older people are sitting there realizing that, we still got to do round 2. And round 2 is always the big round. And then it'll slowly fade away. You're not going to get a vaccine, but you are getting better treatment. Like, I have a very good friend who everyone would know on this podcast, 100% would know if they know. And he just was, he almost died from COVID in the hospital. But what saved him is 4 days after he's admitted, that remdesivir, what's that new drug? Remdesivir?
The antiviral?
Yeah. And he swears to God that saved his life. So I think people are being cautious to better treatments. The young people who have COVID antibodies, maybe that will help, whatever. But I think we got a round 2 coming. And I think that more than ever, we just have to reevaluate our costs. And when I got out of school, I did a crown for $1,000. I billed Delta, and they just had an agreement where we pay 100% of your clean exam and x-ray, 80% for fillings and root canals, and half on dentures and crowns. And then it got into this deal where, no, we're going to send you the fee. And that turned around, and this big change, I think, is going to make people realize that, man, there's a new game in town, at least for the rest of this year. So 2020 is dead on arrival. We'll probably get a big second round in the fall, and then it'll slowly fade away. And these pandemics last, 18 to 24 months. And during that time, I think dentists are realizing that it really wasn't bad taking a month off. And I really don't want to go back to my office on roller skates from 7 to 7 days a week, doing Blue Cross and Blue Shield MOD composites to make $5.16 after taxes. And I think it's I think the game of volume might die. But back to these DSOs, that's where this tangent started. Those guys are leveraged, and those guys think they're all smart, and they got bailed out by the Federal Reserve. I mean, when they started buying junk bonds, I mean, that's why the market rally came back, because you had unprecedented amounts of volume of printing, and they thought, okay, the Fed's got our back. Well, he did. And the Fed does have your back, but that back, they can only do so much. And I don't think the Fed or anybody's going to really have any tools left in their tool chest after September. And these DSOs, they're leveraged to the hilt. So in answer to your question, would this be a time to go out and buy a practice? Oh, hell no. It's not a time to buy stocks or practices, lands and buildings. When Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger start buying things, they're 96 years old. They've seen this stuff. I'm 56 years old, and I was born in 62. Young people think fast and, quick and all that stuff. But no, I think the pain and suffering is a year away or this fall away. I think there'll be far better values in 2021. Now, the human race isn't going away. We're still going to, go on. And this is just one more little deal. And we'll come out stronger. But this was a big whammy. This is the big one of the century.
And it's not done yet.
It hasn't even started. It's round 1. I mean, even the antibody testing. I mean, okay, so maybe 5% of Europe and North America have been exposed to it. 5%. That means that when you're a virus, when you go cold calling people, it's a 95% chance when they answer the phone, there's someone to sell. So it's just time to control costs. And here's another total game changer. A lot of my dentist friends, they can't believe it, where they didn't realize how much money they spent going to these restaurants in Scottsdale and doing all this stuff. And people are realizing, my God, you can do so much less and be fine. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of these dentists didn't even know, and not only can they not sterilize an instrument, I bet there's not 3 dentists in Arizona that know how to run an autoclave. But before the pandemic, only 2 of them knew how to run an oven. And now they're like, I can cook, I can do the autoclave, but I would rather, if I came out of school right now, so that's the ones, when you're a grandfather, you care most about the babies, right? I mean, I'm not worried about a bunch of 57-year-old bald, rich dentists, forget them. But those kids coming out of school, they were following us. They saw us, and we have a lot of, we owe them a lot because they were following us. I follow my next door neighbor, Kenny Anderson, and I've had kids follow me. I've had 2 dental assistants become a dentist, and they were following us, and we let them off a cliff. And what I tell those guys is that you're going to be good. The dentistry is not going away because human health didn't go away. I mean, all evidence shows that the richer and richer you get, you bid up the price of luxury goods. Like, Milton Friedman called it the little blue pill. He said, okay, you're going to die tonight. Your only options are die tonight or buy this blue pill. Well, how much, princess, would you give me for this pill?
As much as you want.
You give me anything. So healthcare has gone from 1% of the GDP to 14% to say the front tooth. I mean, I walk up to girls all the time and I just say, just curious, whenever they're bitching about money, they're bitching about student loans or whatever. I'll say, well, how much money would you give me if I could pull your front tooth? And they scream. And I say, I'll give you $1 million cash if you let me pull your. No way. And so the will to survive. I mean, I think it's weird when you're sitting on a patio and you wonder why do the ants even want to survive? But they all want to survive. But they're the low man on the totem pole. As dentists scale back, they're not going to need an associate. So I think the low man on the totem pole should go start their own low volume dental office and don't do low margin dentistry. Just do fee for service for a margin. Keep your overhead down. I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that was a lot. I think we got some sinuses to pop through still.
Yeah.
So
we're on lunch break at the sinus.
Hopefully we don't
course.
pop through them, but
So
well, you know what I meant.
what we're gonna do is
pop some.
we're gonna shut this baby down, and we'll come back another session of this. I'll tell you, we're back out in a month. Maybe we'll do it again or later. But Howard, it's a pleasure for you to stop by the studio here at Implant Pathway. It's always good to see you. Glad you're doing well, and always appreciate the input you give for dentistry and the leadership that you provide. You've been very influential to a lot of people, and I know you'll continue to do so. So always appreciate seeing you, my man.
Same back at you, Philip. Thank you, buddy.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.